So households, families, people, and real estate businesses look to other parts of town to start a home or make some money. That's when the minority neighborhood with the good bones is identified as the place to be. Baldwin Hills already has the vistas and the views and the hills and the proximity and the highway access. And because the quote unquote market inherently undervalues anything where non-white people, but especially Black people live, the land and cost of doing business in these areas, these gentrified neighborhoods, is already cheap. Said a different way, it ain't nothing but space and opportunity down here. The 4 Degrees to the Streets podcast explores neighborhood design and urban policy topics through the critical lens of equity to give listeners the tools needed to overcome structural and institutional barriers, and examines how the built environment shapes communities for better or worse. Tune in once a month to keep it 4 degrees to the streets. Hey y'all, it's Jasmine. Welcome back to the 4 Degrees to the Streets podcast. Thank you so much for rocking out with me for another city planning episode. It's just me and you today. I have no guests for this month's episode. This episode is a continuation of the gentrification conversation I had on the Black Women's Healing podcast last month, specifically about what to do if you own land in an area that is being gentrified. I'm going to play the clip for y'all in case you haven't had a chance to listen to that episode. The link to it will be in the show notes. Okay, listen up, listen to the clip, and then we'll get back into it.
And now seeing it's like, dang, okay, white flight happened, and then like we made this a community, and we tried so hard to like band together, stick together, and now it's like, dang, like how do we get to here? Mm-hmm. Like a sports complex is cool, but we don't need 4 on 1 street. Like what is going on? Oh. So honestly, it's frustration. I think that as Inglewoodians, we thought that the mayor was going to like do something great for us, but it just feels like that's not in the agenda.
It's interesting because when I look at gentrification, I see it on like 2 different planes, if you will. I see it from the city's perspective, right? They're always going to have a vested interest in more businesses, more homes, bigger homes, more expensive homes, because that's more tax money. That's more sales tax money, more real estate tax money in their pocket. But at the same time, from the people's perspective, and there's 2 different sides of that. You have renters who are virtually like at the whim of their landlord. The landlord can come to you at the end of the year and say, your rent's going to go up 15%. And now it's like, okay, well, I'm supposed to come up with extra $500 every month. So then you're priced out as a renter. You have to move somewhere else. But pricing out as a homeowner is drastically different because it could be 2 different causes. It could be that your property taxes end up going up so high that you can't make those property tax payments because the city is reassessing land every year. So when SoFi comes, that means everything around it, land value has now increased. So if I'm the city of Inglewood, I'm the city of LA, I'm going to assess you a property tax bill at 15% higher. So either way, you got to come up with more money, even if you already own your land. Or you got people knocking on your door, harassing you, offering you $1 million, $1.5 million, $1.2 million, whatever, so that you could sell. And I think that predatory, that harassment is one of the one pieces of gentrification that can in some ways be reduced by people taking a stance and saying, I know the value of what I have, and I'm not going to sell it to you just so I can move somewhere else. To provide some background on what is gentrification, let's talk about it for a little bit. Let's set the table. Gentrification is the process of a neighborhood's economic and social makeup or character changing. Sometimes there's a catalyst for gentrification. A new big park or a stadium or a new train station or a shopping mall opens, and the neighborhoods surrounding that location become attractive places to live by people wealthier than those that currently live there and to large corporations. This is the story of Inglewood with SoFi Stadium and the Intuit Dome. The story of Atlanta with the Atlanta Beltline. But a neighborhood's changing is not always the consequence of a new amenity. Other times, gentrified neighborhoods already have all of the amenities or attractions, but are currently populated by Black people, other non white racial groups, and persons with less wealth, so that the area is perceived to be, by the general public, by corporations, and by wealthy individuals, the area is perceived to be a quote unquote bad area. These are the Latino neighborhoods right next to the beach, or the Black neighborhood immediately adjacent to downtown. Nothing new was put in that area as a catalyst for gentrification. The area had everything it needed, whatever that might be: proximity to downtown, views of the beach, big craftsman homes, whatever. But it also had this perception that at best it was the wrong side of town, and at worst it was the ghetto. Take New York, for example. Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, Harlem, Williamsburg. These neighborhoods have always had good train service, great multi-acre parks, strong, well-built row homes called brownstones, walkable streets, and proximity to Midtown Manhattan. But what they also had in the 80s and 90s was the perception of being the freaking hood. The money of Manhattan never went to Harlem. But from 2010 to 2014, average rents rose 30% in central Harlem. In these neighborhoods where there isn't a big new shiny thing, it's hard to assess what caused the spike in rents, or the home sales, or the closings of mom and pop stores and the opening of big corporate branches. In an episode of Insecure, Issa Rae makes a joke saying, the white people were sitting up in a $4,000 a month one bedroom in Malibu like, them ain't so bad. When talking about the increase of white people living in historically Black LA neighborhoods like Baldwin Hills and Ladera Heights. I'll add something to what Issa is saying here because I feel like she's hitting on something that's important. Gentrification happens in mass across this country because it's profitable. Profitable to any company or person engaging in a real estate transaction. You buy low and you sell, or you rent high. That's the premise, that's the profit. In any city, there's a finite amount of land, and even less land available when you're talking about the areas immediately adjacent to some major attraction like downtown, or the just general quote unquote nice area. So what happens here? As demand grows in that nice part of town, supply is relatively fixed. Fixed because A, the physical land availability, and B, the cost of doing business, such as flipping a home or building a multifamily building, is expensive. So households, families, people, and real estate businesses look to other parts of town to start a home or make some money. That's when the minority neighborhood with the good bones is identified as the place to be. Baldwin Hills already has the vistas and the views and the hills and the proximity and the highway access. And because the quote unquote market inherently undervalues anything where non-white people, but especially Black people live, see Andre Perry's book, Know Your Price, the land and cost of doing business in these areas, these gentrified neighborhoods, is already cheap. Said a different way, it ain't nothing but space and opportunity down here. What makes me sad about gentrification and why I wanted to do this episode is how current residents don't get to benefit from the increase in home value and land value that comes with a gentrifying neighborhood. That's what we mean when we say gentrification is the economic and social change of an area. The economic change is the fact that homes, land, property just broadly increases in value as a neighborhood goes through gentrification. This episode is a collection of my ideas about what a landowner can do to not only protect themselves from displacement, but also reap the economic benefits of gentrification. I'm from a neighborhood currently being gentrified. Small, old homes on really big lots owned by old Black men and women are being sold, demolished, and then turned into 5 and 6 bedroom mansions by non-Black people. And it hurts me every single time I go home. So I created this little guide of what I think people can do to try to keep their homes in the family and not be displaced by gentrification. There's 5 things that we're going to tackle them one by one. One of the biggest stories about gentrification is the harassment and solicitation of homeowners to sell their land. My grandfather alone gets like 5, 6 letters a week from various LLCs offering cash for your home or we buy homes for cash. And here's where the individual must take responsibility for their role in displacement and gentrification. Just because someone offers you a pretty penny for your home does not automatically result in a sale. The story usually goes like this, and we've heard it all before. Some elderly person owns a home since 1946 or whatever near a big vacant publicly owned site, and for decades the city has been saying they're going to do this, they're going to do that, they're going to do X, they're going to do Y, they're going to do Z with that land. Now here we are 60 years later, and whatever that was supposed to be finally comes into fruition. And now grandma's 2-bedroom craftsman with the big trees in the front yard and the hole in the ceiling and the yellow wall tile bathroom has people offering like $800,000 to buy it. That's a whole lot of money to grandma and the whole family. So the offer at the surface is very appealing. And often the family sells the house, takes the money, and moves someplace else, someplace cheaper altogether, like Vegas or Phoenix or Charlotte, and buys a new house and lives happily ever after. But what about the craftsman? And what about the neighborhood and the roots planted there since 1946? And the profit that LLC just made when they tear down the craftsman and build an 8-unit apartment building, collecting $2,500 a month per door forever? What about the equity grandma loss and the taxes paid on the 800,000 that really makes it like 550? If I was a consultant to a family in a gentrifying neighborhood deciding on what to do with land, I'd offer them the following 5 steps. And here are the 5 steps. Get a quote for a home equity loan or refinance, get an appraisal, get a zoning analysis, get a market analysis, and do an attitude assessment of your business and real estate acumen. And let's get into those individually one by one. The first one, getting a quote for a home equity loan or refinance. This is an important step because you don't know what the home is actually valued at, what money you could actually put in your pocket based on the home equity that's already grown. The bank's going to tell you based on your credit history, their value of the land, how much money in a loan they would give you to make repairs or changes to that property. You purchased this land or this house at some price so many years ago. And since then, the home's value has increased or appreciated. And so a home equity loan or a home refinance lets you borrow money from that appreciation in value. That money that you borrow can then be used to add an ADU, do an addition, renovate the bathrooms, fix the roof, do the ceiling, overall make improvements to your property to improve your experience on that piece of land. Maybe the $800,000 that you were being offered as your family sounded appealing because there was so much work to be done at the house. But what if you knew that you could borrow money, just add a couple $100 more to the mortgage, and you would have all the things you wanted in your future home right here where you already live? The second thing I would suggest is going to get an appraisal. The bank is going to do this with their refinance process. They're going to get an appraisal on the land and tell you, we think the land is worth XYZ. But anybody can go get an appraisal on property. You contact an appraisal firm and you do an independent appraised assessment. This appraisal will tell you the current value of the land and the value of the land as improved after you do some remodeling or something in the future. The as-is value is a good gut check too. It helps you assess whether somebody's offer that they're giving you to buy your home or buy your land is high or not. You get the as improved value, you'll get a contractor to come out, look at your house, you'll walk him or her through the things you want to do to it, the improvements you want to make. They'll give you some sort of quote for how much that's going to cost. That goes into the appraisal, and the appraiser can give you a as improved value. So they can tell you the house today is worth $850, but the house in the future, after you upgrade the kitchen and add an extra bathroom and maybe do an addition to the den, is worth 1.2. And now you know, oh shoot, he offered me 800,000, but with that, I have to move all the way to Charlotte. If I stayed here, yada yada yada, I could have a $1 million house. Things to think about when you're assessing whether or not an offer is good. The third thing I would say is to get a zoning analysis. Zoning, as we talked about on this podcast before, I'll have some links to our shows where we specifically have a conversation on zoning. But zoning is an urban planning tool to dictate or direct development of land in a city. It says that this general area can be commercial, and here's what the physical dimensions of what we think commercial looks like. Or it says this area over here has to stay residential, and it could be either single family residential or multifamily 10-story building residential, different scales of everything. But understanding the zoning helps you understand what's the highest and best use of land. When I say highest and best use, that's a real estate term to mean that you have land. You have a piece of property that you can do something. You can farm it. You can build an industrial building. You could build an apartment building. You can build a single family house. You can do all these different things. What's the highest and best use of the land? What's the best way to maximize the land that you have? For example, you could have a house on a 1 acre lot, and that house could be zoned for multifamily, and you using it as a single family house this whole time. Now you know that you could have done a multifamily. What's the highest and best use? And I'd say that the zoning analysis is the most important step in going from just protecting yourself against displacement, right? By getting an appraisal and getting a refinance loan or a quote for a refinance. But I would say that the zoning analysis is the most important step in actually profiting from gentrification like everybody else. It's this first step of really thinking about your land as something not just so you can live on, but you can make money from. The zoning analysis is going to reveal to you the highest potential use of your land, which gives you the opportunity to do the very thing that LLC was going to do when they buy your grandma's house. You can be the house flipper. You can be the multifamily developer, collecting rent high in a gentrified area off the land that you've owned since the 50s. That's what zoning analysis does. And because urban planning is gatekept, most landowners don't even know what their land is zoned for. They just know I've been living on it as a single family house, or it's always been a piece of vacant land. But keeping in line with that storyline of your grandmother's home, it might have been zoned in 1947 for single family detached. But it's very likely that here in 2025, the zoning has completely changed and it allows for higher density or non-residential use or much more. And I'll just add one more nugget here, because if you find that your zoning really does say this land has to stay single family detached, a zoning variance is a way that you can apply for a parcel of land to say, I really want to do 2 detached single family homes on this land. Can I get a variance? You go to the city planning office, you go to what they call the zoning board, a panel of appointed officials. Some cities are volunteers, some cities they're community members that decide whether they want to approve or deny a change or a variance from how the area is currently zoned. And the fourth thing I would say, and this is really important, is to get a real estate market analysis completed, where your zoning analysis is going to show you what the land could be used for legally. The market analysis will tell you what land use will have the best success. A market analysis is an in-depth report on a neighborhood or region. The market analysis is going to identify demand drivers like future development plans or a new big infrastructure project, like eventually we're going to build a Purple Line train here or something like that. It's also going to assess housing quality in the area, the age of homes, the condition of homes, the style of homes. It'll also list incomes and racial makeup of a geography. It's going to have a demographic analysis. It'll assess rents in the area, rent change over time. It'll project what future rents might be in the area. It'll assess home sales in terms of the frequency of home sales, the price of homes that have sold in the area, the buyer and seller demographics. The market analysis will also compare your property or your land to others in the area. This is your comps, as we call it in the real estate market. The biggest thing you're going to get out of a market analysis is the understanding of your future profit. Say your zoning analysis showed you that you could do an ADU. First of all, what's an ADU? I've been talking about this whole episode. ADU, or accessory dwelling unit, is a very urban planning term, but basically it's a detached building from your home that has an apartment in it. It could be over the garage, like a guest house. It could be a totally separate house. You could rent it out to strangers. You could also have it be for your son, your daughter, your grandparent, your mother-in-law, whomever. It's a residential building on the same piece of land as an existing residential building, and it's called an accessory dwelling unit or a carriage house, an in-law suite, a guest house, whatever. But say your zoning said you could have an ADU in your backyard. Your market analysis is going to show you what ADUs in the region generally collect in rent on average per month. So that you know, okay, my zoning says I could build an ADU, but what does that mean? How am I to know if it's worth me building this ADU? How much could I get in rent? Your market analysis is going to tell you, oh, ADUs that have 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom and a little private garage can collect $3,500 or whatever in rent. Then you're like, Or say, and this will get into that fifth part, say you don't want to be a landlord and your market analysis shows you that home values are just now starting to rise. And that within the next 5 years, they predict that home values are going to be 3 times more than they are now. So maybe you look at that and you're like, I could sell right now, or I could wait a little bit and get even more money from my land. The reason why most of these steps so far have been reports and studies and analysis is because information is really what's needed. The decision to sell a piece of property in an area that is being gentrified cannot be done in a vacuum without information. You better believe that those real estate brokers and those developers that are marketing Bed-Stuy as Stuyvesant Heights or South Central LA as South LA have done their research. They know that rents can be this. They know that they buy your land for $500,000 and they knock it down, they can build a multifamily building and collect more than they ever gave you in cash. So you're sitting there thinking you got all this money, $500,000, and really it's a gotcha because I gave you that, satisfied you because you have lower expectations of value, of worth, or whatever, and I'm out here making money. And finally, the fifth thing I would say is to complete an attitude assessment. Now, the other things, an appraisal you can hire, a market study you can hire, zoning analysis you can hire. An attitude assessment is really internal. It's a assessment of your own willingness or propensity to be in the real estate business. It is not for everybody. Everybody is not built to be a landowner, a landlord, a property manager, anything like that. But the attitude assessment will help you see maybe you're not meant to, maybe you don't have the propensity or the attitude or the willingness to manage a 12-unit apartment building, but maybe having one tenant in an ADU you can handle. Maybe you don't want to be the one to go through the refinance and you learn through this attitude assessment that your husband, though, is really into it, or your grandson or your daughter is really into it and they can go through the process with you. I think this is one of the most important steps is because we often see the dollar value in cash and we're like, okay, take the cash. It's the easiest way to go. But the attitude assessment will really help you assess whether you could be the one to do the flip, to build the ADU, to do the multifamily units, to do the thing that LLC is going to do once they take your grandma's house. After you've done all of this, I think that you'll be ready to decide whether or not the family should sell grandma's house. You'll know a whole lot more than you did before. And nothing beats making a well-informed decision, especially when it comes to businesses and land and money and assets. After doing your appraisal and your zoning analysis and your market analysis and your attitude assessment and getting a quote from your local bank on a refinance, you'll know a lot. You'll know what your home is valued at today, what the home could be valued at tomorrow if you did XYZ things, what your land itself is zoned for, what could be the highest and best use, what the house is worth per month as a rental, what additional rental units could be done on the property and what income you could make there. You'll know the development plans for the future, right? You'll be able to know if a SoFi is being planned, if a new train station is being planned, if they're going to build a new highway through the middle of the city. You'll know the population growth. You'll know the job stats and what companies are trying to build new offices in your area. All those different things that just pop up. And you're like, how did that get there? When did they change that ShopRite to Arouse? Those things you'll learn through the market analysis. And finally, through the attitude assessment, you'll have an understanding of what kind of scenario you would feel comfortable having with your land or with the property. And that gives you options. And having information and having options makes you powerful. It makes you resistant to displacement and gentrification. So like I mentioned, my neighborhood in New Jersey is currently going through gentrification. I came up with these ideas, this kind of steps of what I would do if I was faced with this scenario a few months ago after going on a walk around my neighborhood where I grew up. Growing up, my street from end to end was homes owned by Black families with various conditions, various sizes, various household makeups. And it hurts to see in 2025 it not like that anymore. And I know that change is inevitable and that a neighborhood that was all Black in 1950 was likely not that way in 1900 or 1875. But at the same time, I can't help shake that there is something each of us can do individually on our own pieces of land to protect our neighborhood from displacement and reap the financial benefits of gentrification. It breaks my heart to see Black families living in a community without sidewalks or street trees and without a park improvement for decades, raising their children, becoming members of institutions and churches and libraries and park programs and community organizations. Just overall, generally loving their neighborhood and loving their community the same, only to sell their asset at the neighborhood's beginning stages of economic growth. It's like, boom, right after the house is sold, sidewalks, street trees, bike lanes, new parks, new stores, new and places to work. Meanwhile, you're living in some other area. That's all I got for y'all this month. No guests, just me, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation just the same. If you like this episode, please send it to one of your friends, one of your family members, put them on game. Thank you for listening to the 4 Degrees to the Streets podcast. Download episodes once a month wherever you get your podcast. Follow us on Instagram at the number 4 Degrees pod. And don't sell your grandmother's house. Peace out, y'all.